It's one of these things that you see it and you say it. I don't want you to be this idea of committing it to memory. You see, in religious circles, which we are, it's easy to commit things to rote memory. And when we do that, we think that we're doing it. Friends, it's pointless to commit to memory to say that you know it if you're not doing it. Amen. It's amazing how easily we can fool ourselves. So as we memorize it, as we look through our fourfold purpose, it'd be great if we really concentrate and understand this. Our fourfold purpose is, number one, to worship God. To worship God. I mean, nothing else is as important as when we worship God. And as Pastor Robin mentioned earlier, worshiping God is not just when we're singing here together in the morning. It's how we live our life. It's our life ought to be a crescendo of worship to God. Which brings us to the second purpose, and that is to draw people to Jesus. I mean, to have these things committed to memory and then not do them is really doesn't make sense. To draw people to Jesus. You see, Jesus said, go into all the world and preach the gospel, make disciples. He said, you are the salt, you are the light. We are God's commercial. We need to draw people like a moth to the flame by our love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness. I mean, who isn't drawn to those kind of qualities? We need to live our life in such a way that people want to know, where did you get that? Because secular humanism does not contain that. The third purpose is to teach and train. To teach and train. Now, I think that we do a fairly good job teaching and training because we try a lot, but I have to admit, it can get kind of discouraging when you think about it. Barna Research said, evangelical Christians, those kind of Christians like you and I, these born-again types, these type that say we read our Bibles and that we take Christianity more seriously than, broad brushstroke, than liturgical churches. Barna Research says, you and I, evangelical Christians, only 9% of us have a basic understanding and grasp of some of the fundamentals of Christianity. Only 9%. It's like, are you kidding me? God, I'm going to go home. I quit. I mean, you kind of feel that way sometimes. It's like, wow. Wasn't last Sunday a good service? You can't remember that far. Do you remember I ended really challenging you on this idea of what does God put in your heart? What does God want you to do? Each one of us are gifted. We're all a part of the body of Christ. The think tank called the staff in the staff does not reside all creativity and uniqueness and everything else. It doesn't. A lot of it is residing out here. I left you with the challenge to be thinking about, what does God ask you to do? What's in your life? If you answer the question, what's the most important job in the church? You'd be wrong if you said the preacher. You'd also be wrong if you said the worship leader, Pastor Bob. The correct answer to that question, what's the most important job in the church, is the one that God's called you to do. You see, because if he's called you to do it and you don't do it, it's not going to get done. And if it does get done, it's got to be somebody else pulled away from what they're supposed to be doing to do what you're supposed to be doing. Now, here's what's really challenging is, a couple times, I think in 35 years of ministry, I've done it twice. I've preached the same sermon 2 weeks in a row. I was lazy that week, didn't want to come up with another sermon. No. That's not why. I did it, number one, just see if anybody's really paying attention. Secondly, to emphasize a point. Halfway through the sermon, somebody will get my attention. Pastor Mike, didn't you preach that last week? And I go, yeah, I did. They go, I thought so. I thought I heard that before. Which, it's like, set it up for me to hit. Yeah. Question is, are you doing it? You're right, we just talked about it last week. You heard it. Are you doing it yet? No, you're not doing it. But yet, we have these great messages and great teachings, and we hear them 1 week, and they're like, oh, that was good, man, wasn't church good today? And then we go on our merry way. You know, we should almost stay parked on something for a while. I think it was William Penn. I know he said this. I'm going to butcher the paraphrasing, but he said about the Bible, he says, since love is the greatest lesson in this book, we should spend the most time on it. Love. Can you imagine how bored you'd get if you heard a sermon on love 90% of the time? But yet the question is, are you a better lover? Do you love people better? It's like, why do we just move on? It's like, good service, oh great, now we're on something new. This morning, we're going to be on to something new again, when you didn't even get last week down yet. Hello? I mean, it's kind of an interesting, strange thought, isn't it? Nonetheless, one of our purposes is to teach and to train. And then lastly is to impact our community. That's our fourfold purpose. To impact our community, which is what we did, I think, in a wonderful way with the Halloween stop. Great thing, church come together, boom, all the community comes around, 3,000 people kind of coming through and running around. What a great thing. And then that brings us to our core values. And here's where we've been for the last couple of weeks. Just, again, by way of reminder of the core values. Number one, we value uniqueness. We value the fact that we're all different. We're not all the same. Unity has to be there, but sameness is not unity. Unity does not mean sameness. We cherish the fact that we're all different, which means we're crazy. Turn to your neighbor and say, you're crazy. You're crazy. I mean, it's just the way it is. Now, hopefully you didn't have to say that to your spouse. Some of you did. Hopefully you said it a little softer. You're crazy. You know, making sure the emphasis was on the right syllable. Instead of, you're crazy, with enthusiasm in your voice. That'd be bad. You know, the problem is that because we all think that we are the center of normal. We can't escape it. I do it, you do it. We've got to really understand that we're going to need to value the fact that we're unique. Each one of us brings different gifts to the table. So we value uniqueness. We also value, number two, we value being real. We value being real. Being real means more than not wearing a tie. Back a while ago in the church world, it was everybody's trying to be real. Oh, we just got to be real, got to be real. So some ministers took the tie off, and that they thought that was going to make them real. That doesn't make you real. You see, being real means being open and honest and transparent. You don't play the game. It's a little riskier than just taking your tie off. I can't tell you the number of times that people have told you have told me or my wife that you're just amazed. You know, the other church I went to, the pastor would have never said anything about his family like that. Would have never talked about some of the failings and the struggles of their kids. How many times, I can't number, when you have all said to me and to Orlean, can't believe you guys just share that with us. You see, there's the fear. We got to live in this phony world where you pretend that, you know, nothing happens wrong and everything is perfect. Friends, I live in a real world where real things happen. Worshiping a real God, just like you do. Amen? There's no pretending, there's no hiding. So we value this idea of being real. Now, again, this being real scares some people because they've learned to play the Christian game and they hide behind their religiosity. Around here, we don't value that. So if you're really good at religiosity, you're probably going to be disappointed around here very long because we don't value that. All those chess pieces, the game pieces you have of religiosity, you might as well just sell them, get rid of them. God, that reminds me, I think the Apostle Paul said something like that too. For all these things I've amassed, I count it as loss for the sake of Christ. Number three, our core value is being relevant. We strive and we value being relevant. We are not very religious, as I mentioned. We try to be relevant and meet people right where they're at. And again, scary people with broken lives does not scare us. I've said it before, you know, in this series I've been mentioning, there's one church in town that says all we want is the white-collar professionals. Maranatha can have Maranatha, they'll take anybody. You're right, we will. Last time I read the book, I think God says he takes every one of us. Hallelujah. I expect non-Christians to act like non-Christians. Why would we expect any different? I mean, they're surprised at, the French they speak, the kind of French that's not a foreign language, It's like, why does that surprise you? Yeah. God, listen, right now in my mind, I just thought of a couple stories I'd love to tell you. I can't, though. God. Some of the things that people have said to me. I'll tell you one. This is out there, but not as far out there as some have told me. One Sunday, there's a guy who'd been just coming to church for like a couple months, and he met me in the church afterwards in the lobby, and he says, Pastor Mike, that was the best GD sermon I ever heard. I'm just like, yeah. I didn't go, oh my God, you can't say that. It's no. I knew where he was coming from. It's just his lifestyle. That's the best GD sermon I ever heard. Now, most pastors probably would have been offended. I took it as a high compliment that he felt comfortable to speak where he's coming from. Amen? Okay, if that's kind of edgy and I have one that's even farther out, doesn't it make you wonder what that is? No, I won't tell it. In small groups. If you come to me and you want to know, if you genuinely really want to know what somebody said to me one time, I'll tell you. We value creativity. Number 4, one of our core values, we value creativity. That's what I just mentioned earlier. What dreams, what ideas, what does God put in your heart, in your life? Okay, let's move on to number 5. The 5th value that we have, it's a core value of ours. Now, it's going to sound a lot like number 1, our uniqueness, but it's really quite honestly different. The emphasis really is so much different on our uniqueness to the fact that we value people. We value people. You see, sometimes it's easy to forget that ministry is about people. Sometimes you can get so busy doing ministry that you forget what it's there for. Now, as I watched all of you that were serving and working at the Halloween stop, I was so proud of you. I thought it was so cool. But quite honestly, it could get ugly to the point where you're serving and you're working there and some kid comes up with a snot nose and he's giving you a hassle and you just, get out of here, you little, or you treat him rather rudely or whatever else. No. You see, the minute we do that, we forget the Halloween stop is not about candy. It's about people. Even that snot-nosed little kid standing there being a pain because they matter. You see, we value people. We count people because people count. Every one of us matters. Each and every one of us matter. It's kind of another little sub-byline of our church. Our church is really simple when you think about it. We've really been commissioned to love God and love people. I mean, it's about loving God and loving people. I don't know why people complicate the ministry so much. It's about loving God and loving people. This idea of lesser than is an amazing thing. Somebody who's lesser than. I've been in ministry 35 years, and a boss, I was a youth pastor for a couple of years. Shortly after that, a senior pastor, my dad and I co-pastoring, and my dad, after 8 years, resigning. I was the sole senior pastor then, and I've never raised my voice at a staff person, except once. Except once. I'm almost ashamed to tell the story. I've told the story before. You've heard it. We were in the reception area, and the receptionist, the secretary, was there, and I love her. She's still around. She's not in the secretary position anymore. It's Karen Geisen. And so I was asking her opinion about something. And this guy that we had hired, who was older than me, but he had been around for a while, and I thought, I want him so badly to come up to Maranatha. I thought we would be a blessing for him. He could enjoy some of his last final years of ministry, really enjoy being up around here. But we're standing outside the lobby there, the reception area, and I'm asking her opinion, and he says to me, He says, why do you ask her that stuff? She's just a secretary. Let me tell you something. We value people that to the core, I don't lose it, but I lost it. I grabbed him by the arm and I shoved him in my office and proceeded to yell at him. It's like, who do you think you are? I mean, really? Because you have a minister behind your name, a credential, you think you're better than other people? You're missing the whole point of this thing called Christianity. She's just a secretary. Now, when I talk about that, I think about how many times you or I have looked at other people with a lesser than attitude. I don't know, I think that a lot of our ministry styles and the ministry that we do comes out of our life's experiences. And again, I've shared this story with you in the past, but I'll share it again. I believe it bears repeating. When I was growing up, I was a skinny, scrawny little kid, curly hair, glasses, got glasses when I was in second grade. You know, at recess time, when all the boys line up and they choose for themselves the two biggest, brawniest, the most popular guys, they become the team captains. And then they flip for who's going to start, and then they go, I pick him, I'll pick him, I pick him. I was never picked. I remember how embarrassing or how uncomfortable it was going to be when recess time came, because I wanted to play, and I was going to play with everybody, but I knew that I was going to be subjected to that very awkward, painful silence of being the last one standing there as my buddy next to me got picked. See, I never got picked. They said, you take Mike, or you have to take Mike. It's like, wow. And I know what that was. I remember what that felt like. Just in knowing recess is coming and you're going to go out there. And I know I was never going to be the team captain. I was never even going to get picked. Nobody wanted me. I just had to be there because you had to be on a team. Something happened right around 7th grade, 8th grade for sure. Then by 9th grade, I moved from this one school to another school. Now, to you ladies, I would like to just say something. Just because he's new doesn't tell you anything about him. Okay, just a little note. In this case, it was a good thing, though. I showed up as the new kid, and it was like, wow, these people don't know I'm a loser. It's like, and because I changed my hairstyle, and some girls actually kind of, paid attention to me, and then I started arm wrestling guys. Something happened in 9th grade. I started getting stronger, and because I'm starting to get stronger, I started working on it even more. So I went out for wrestling in 9th grade, and again, I went in the gym, and I was working out, and back then it was in South St. Paul Junior High, which was the largest junior high in the state of Minnesota as far as volume of kids, and the weight room director, the athletic director, he put up a poster that they just started a 200-pound bench press club. They had just put that up as something new in the school, and there was 2 names on it. These guys were big, well over 200 pounds in 9th grade, and they had bench pressed 200 pounds. So I thought, I want to be on there, and I worked. I weighed 119 pounds, and I benched 200 pounds. My name got up on that thing, and I was like, yes. Later that year, I was voted in to be a part of the homecoming court. Now somebody was going to pick me, and she was hot. No, I'm just kidding. I digress. That was just in my, a guy in his fantasy, in his mind, I think I was like 3rd runner-up, but it was just, things had changed. Okay, so now at this time, in that whole social sliding scale of school, we all know it's awkward to talk about it. We still operate that way sometimes today in society, which is horrible because we have this lesser than attitude. But I was walking down the hall, and I was quite popular now by this time in 9th grade, and there's another kid who was trying to climb up that social ladder. He met eyes with me, and right between us was a nerd carrying his books. So as he came up behind the nerd, he flipped his books down the hall. And he looked up at me like as if he was going to be met with my approval. Like, hey, that's cool, funny. I didn't think it was funny. I remember looking at him going, what a jerk. As I knelt down and helped this kid pick up his books. I'll never forget it. I will never forget He didn't say a word to me. But his eyes, as we looked at each other, said volumes. At least what I heard him say to me is, "You're Mike Hazeltine. What are you doing helping me pick up my books?" And I realized something at that moment. Friends, people in society that have a lot of friends don't need another. But the people who don't have any, they need one. People count. We value people. It is one of our core values. And I hope and pray that we never forget, it's about people. This idea of lesser than. How many of you know the Bjorks? Dave and Silky Bjork. They have a handicapped boy, Michael. He greets me almost every Sunday with enthusiasm. In other words, it hurts. He hurts me. He shows up and he feels the freedom and the liberty just to punch me and just, whatever. But I love it. I love it. Mikey, how are you today? Usually in this service, they're not here today, but usually in that back row back there are some, usually some handicapped young ladies. I call them my girlfriends. Because I look forward to every Sunday greeting them, holding them, embracing them, letting them know you're important, you're valuable, you're precious. And I really like it. A couple of them actually squeal with delight when I give them a hug. It's so much fun. You see, people count. We value people. In Luke chapter 15, we see an interesting story that Jesus tells. He tells a parable, beginning of verse 3, he says, "Then Jesus told them this parable. Suppose one of you has 100 sheep and loses one of them. Doesn't he leave the 99 in the open country and go after the lost sheep until he finds it? And when he finds it, he joyfully puts it on his shoulders and goes home. Then he calls his friends and neighbors together and says, 'Rejoice with me, I have found my lost sheep.' I tell you that in that same way, there will be more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who do not need to repent." I mean, it's really interesting. It's like, Pastor Mike, you pay some more attention to us when we were visiting. Now we've been coming here a couple of years, you don't talk to us as much. You're right, I don't. You should be assimilated in the body. Not that I don't care, but I have to admit, I'm really trying to reach out to and touch people who don't really feel a bond here yet. And I wish I could get to everyone, and I don't. I know some of you visited here for months before we ever get a chance to meet. And I would love to come park on your sidewalk and just hold your hand and sit down and talk to you and fill me in. But friends, here's the deal. I'd like to challenge all of us. When you show up at church, it's great to see your friends. It really is. It's important. I don't want to minimize that. It is important. But you need to be constantly reaching out and looking for someone else to include into your circle. You really do. I hear all the time, I don't want to go to that big church. You can't know everybody. I didn't know that was a prerequisite. That you had to know everybody in church. What all of us ever know is quite a large handful. And that's what makes us belong, amen? We value people. If you look back just in an earlier chapter 12, Luke chapter 12, just verses 6 and 7. Jesus says, "Are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 pennies? I mean, think about it. 5 sparrows, 2 pennies. Pretty cheap. Yet not one of them is forgotten by God." Think about that. Not one sparrow is forgotten by God. All the millions and billions of people on the globe, and God is even keeping track of the sparrows. Randy, when you were a kid and you shot that sparrow with a BB gun, God saw it. I mean, when one sparrow hits the ground, it does not go unnoticed to God. He's got the sparrows accounted for. Indeed, the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Don't be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows. I think about this, this idea of what we think is valuable and not valuable. Again, this scale, however you describe it, and I feel terribly inadequate at trying to describe this lesser than, this whole feeling of people. Our views of what we judge as beautiful and what we think is perfect, I think is really screwed up. I think we're all going to be in for a shock when we get to heaven. Because every one of us is trying to strive for this beauty or this perfection or this whatever. I have a question for you. If you lived at a deserted island, would you mow your lawn? Chuck would? You would? Most of us would say no. So much of what we do that we can't even begin to go there. I mean, I would love to entertain some discussion on that whole thing, but there's so many things that we do. The clothes you pick, the jewelry you wear, the shoes you bought the other day. I mean, you do it for a reason that is motivated usually outside of just yourself. It was imposed on you by someone, somewhere in society. Because quite honestly, if you really truly said you didn't care, you'd be naked. Because naked is just so much easier, it's lighter. Okay, you wouldn't be naked. By that response, we like our clothes. Okay. The idea is what we judge and how we look at stuff, who we think is valuable and important and all that. Again, I'm not sharing anything new. I really believe, I don't have any theological basis for it, but I believe when we get to heaven, because I've seen some really beautiful choirs. The voices are lovely, every hair in place for the guys and the gals in the choir, and they're singing, and it just sounds so melodious. But our view is so much different than God's. I really think, and again, I have no scriptural reference for this, but just knowing the heart of God, I have a hunch that when we get to heaven, God pulls back the curtains of time. He says, I want you to listen to this choir. And please don't be offended. I don't mean to offend or make anybody terribly uncomfortable. Maybe I'm not saying it right, but I believe that what we're going to see is a bunch of mongoloids, a bunch of handicaps, a bunch of people that are mentally challenged, retarded. There's going to be drool coming down the sides of some of their mouths, but they're going to be singing to the glory of God. And they're going to be off key, but their hearts are going to be just coming out of them just to the glory of God. And I think that God is going to look with such a pride. There's my first choir. There's my premium, my highest desired choir right there. And he'll say to all of you and I know that you tried well and you did a good job, but nothing like these guys. You see, we value people. And that's why the brokenness of people's lives don't scare us. It doesn't scare us. In fact, when Jesus was walking this earth and he was proclaiming the kingdom of heaven, he always had crowds around him. He had crowds around him all the time. But you know what's really interesting to observe and look at? What made him stop? When you think about Jesus going through, he had the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the mayors. He had all these important people kind of curious, checking him out. What's he doing? What's he up to? So he had all these people around him all. And one day, again, what makes Jesus, this important person on a busy schedule with all these people around him, what makes him stop? Well, I can tell you what made him stop one time was this widow, this woman. 12 years she's had an issue of blood. She's seen every doctor. She'd spend all of her money trying to get well. But you know something? She made her way through the crowd and she touched the hem of his garment. Jesus, who touched me? And the disciples looked around at him like, are you mad? There's all these people around. You want to know who touched you? And I believe, he says, in the scripture it says, he sensed power go out from him. I'm thinking what he would really say to you and I, he says, I sensed need touch me. It's another way of saying the same thing. I sensed need touch me. And he paused in that schedule for this one woman. He's walking through town, and again, these normal crowds, and there's 2 men following him, crying out, "Have mercy on us, Son of David! Have mercy on us!" In all of his busyness, he stops and he heals them. There was a Canaanite woman in Matthew 15 crying out, "Lord, have mercy. My daughter is demon-possessed." Jesus is going along. You got to imagine this. He's going along in life. Life is busy. He's an important person. All these people around him. But one woman cries out and he stops. "What is it I can do for you?" To everybody else would have seemed insignificant. What about the blind beggar? There's a blind beggar hearing that Jesus is coming by. He says, Son of David, have mercy on. Son of David, have mercy. And everybody around him says, "Shut up. Shut up. You're embarrassing." Jesus stops because he hears that one voice. Aren't you grateful that God stopped for your voice? I wonder how many people in our lives that we unfortunately are saying, "Be quiet. Be quiet," when we should join with them in their need to get the Master's attention. And with this, I'll close. We're going to have communion today. Will the communion serving us today, would you guys make yourselves ready as we go here? Matthew chapter 25, beginning at verse 31, going to verse 40. Matthew chapter 25. Jesus, our Master, is speaking. He says, "When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered before him." Wow. I don't know about you guys, but I just read stuff like this and I just go, this is going to be incredible. As far as the eye can see in every direction, a mass humanity of people. And all the nations will be gathered before him. And he will separate the people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, we did not see you. When did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you a drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go and visit you?" Friends, listen carefully. The king will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these, you did to me."